Hi, good morning, good night, or good evening. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Remember, I'm your teacher, Alondra Mercadero Ramirez. Well, what we're gonna learn today? Today, we're gonna learn about some different, to be more specific, 6 interesting theories about cognitive development theories. Okay, so before starting, I wanna tell what do you think what is a cognitive development? Well, remember, we as a teachers we need to know how our students is growing out their mental brainings is developing and something like that. Well, remember that the cognitive development is, for example, how the human beings start to gain mature and can process the mental process of our learning, and they can understand, they can use the information and make sense of the information. Well, this video is gonna be divided into the 3 stages. The first one is a few theories that talks about how the mental or how as a humans the brain is the start to be mature. Then the second one is how the social interaction is super important to be able to understand and create new knowledge. And the third is how to create meaningful activities to our students and how the motivation and the mindfulness is super important. Okay, so let's start. Well, let's start with the first one. The first one is the psychological theory by Erickson. Okay, well, here Erickson it says that or explain 8 stages in which our personality and our mental brain it start to growing out. Okay, and for example, each stage face a certain conflict a result, and how with these conflicts and results we can start creating a particular or a specific skill. Here in this case, if we are English teacher or we are a language teacher, how we can understand what it could be the process. Also, if you are a mathematics teacher, an English teacher, well. So let's start with the first theory. The first stage. What is the first stage? The first stage is the trust versus the mistrust. This is when we are birth, the first day of our birth, until the 18 months. Here in this part, we start or we have the lack of confidence because we don't know we are babies. The second one is autonomy versus shame and flow. Here in this part is 18 months until the 2 years. Here in this part we can learn and we can start learning about our independence and experience, but without our capacities, our skills, we are not sure. The third one is the initiative versus guilty. Here in this part is 2 years until the 6 years. Here in this part, here we have an assertive, or we are not pretty sure. We are risk and we have narrative because we think that if we do something, it could be with risk negative, so consequences. Then the fourth is the industry versus inferiority. In this part, it says that how the culture and the educational skills start to growing out between the interaction that we have with another one. Then the number 5 is the intimacy versus isolation. Here in this part is when we all enjoy alcohol, like me, for example. And here in this part is we can't starting to interact with someone else, and also we start to develop close friends relationships. Then the stage number 6, generative versus stagnation. Here in this is the adulthood, and here in this part we provide or we can understand some accomplishment, but this accomplishment is has lack of meaningful. Then the other word is integrity versus disappear. And here is in the adulthood. Here in this part, we can start to growing out our wisdoms, or we can start with some regrets. And then the last is the hope versus the faith. That is in the adulthood. For example, when we are 60 years old or something like that, and here in this part we start to growing out that's the limit of our growing out our mind, and this is the dependency or the codependency. And for example, we are more I don't know how to say it, but more mature it could be. Vale? Now let's start with the second one, that is the Piaget's theory of cognitive development. And here in this part, Piaget also it talks about how we are start to growing down in the mature. Okay, here we have 4 stages instead of the Erikson's theory. Let's start with the number 1. In the number 1 is the sensorimotor. Here in this part is when we birth until the 2 years, and here the little child start using some sensory capabilities and motor activities, okay, to start to learn the word. Then the second one is the pre-operational, and here in this stage is about 2 until the 7 years old. And for example, the children try to use symbolic thinking to explore and understand the world. Here in this part, maybe they can start to touch, to explore, and start making some questions. What is the function of this? How function, or something like that. Then the number 3 is the concrete operational. Here in this part, the child understands the operations and thinks more logical. Here in this part has a concrete reference, and they already understand what is happening. And in the stage number 4 is the formal operational, that is 11 years old until about. And here in this part, now the children is able to think logical and systematically, and is capable to think or to create hypothetical situations or thinking. Okay, here in this part, as a teacher, I can provide you some methods that you can use in your classes, because remember, we can work with childs or even with adults, but we need to, or we can understand what is the purpose of the mature of our students, and maybe we can use the natural approach, the situational method, the multiple intelligence, because remember that child and the students have different multiple intelligence. Okay, and I think that that's the part of the how our students start growing out their mental training, and how we can create different activities. Okay, now let's start with another 3 theories. These 3 theories start or is more focused on the social interaction, on how social interaction is super important to our students, because in this part they can create some interaction, and they can learn through the talk-to-talk, face-to-face, or touch touch with another one. So let's start with the 3 theory. The 3rd theory, that is the ecologic theory by Bronfenbrenner. Brenner says that here we have 4 systems that is around us, and let's have human beings. And the first one is our individual. Okay, it says is the microsystem. His microsystem is, for example, the interaction that we have with our family, with our school, with our parents, no? And for example, how this interaction can impact with our learning, with our knowledge, or what can we learn with all through our family or our school or something like that. Okay, then here we have the mesosystem. Here in this system we can interact with our co-workers, with our teachers or something like that, and for example what we can learn about them, no? In the third, here we have the exosystem. Here in this part impacts the neighbors, our community, the environment, or for example even the social media or the media mass, the Facebook, something like that. How impact our learning, or what can learn about it. And then the last is the macro system. There is a number 4. Here in this part is for example how the culture, the religion, the history of our country or another country can impact in our knowledge. Okay, that's the part of the Erikson's theory. Now let's start with Bandura's theory. That is the social learning. As I said before, is how the socialism impacts in our learning. Okay, and here Bandura's has 5 principles, interesting tips that we need to take into account in our students, or we as learners. The number 1 is the observation, that we can learn through observation. For example, if we're saying our teachers what they are using in the classroom or something like that, we can learn through observation. No? Then the number 2 is the attention. For example, we can create new thoughts or new cognitive learning through the attention, because remember that we can't process the information and through the attention. Then the retention, remember, is how can retain the information in a long or short period of time. Now the reproduction, for example, if we as students we understand a topic, how we can reproduce that part, no? For example, we already know or learned something, how can explain that to another person? And then the last part, that is the motivation, that in a moment or we are gonna talk about it. In motivation, remember, we as a human, as students, we need to have a main aim, what we're gonna achieve in the future. So that's our motivation. Okay, now let's start with the Vygotsky theory. And here in this part, Vygotsky says that we have 3 sons, similar like Braun-Freinet. Here we have the things that we can do by ourselves, what can do alone, no? For example, we can explore it, what can I do alone? Then the second zone is what can do with help, no? For example, our teachers or our mentors, what can help us to be able to do something. Then the third zone, there is the outreach zone, and there in this part is what can I do? What I'm conscious about what can I do? But remember, this part of these zones we are gonna develop through how the social interaction that we have with another one. And then let's start with the Asbul theory. Well, here Asbul, but that's the part of the interaction and the important part that we have, or have the socialism, okay? Remember that if we see or if we watch how people communicate or express, we can learn through what they are doing. And as a final part, I'm gonna say some methods that we can use as a teacher to use more the social interaction to be able to create a cognitive development in a good way. Well, here in this part, it could be the humanistic, the interactive approach, the communicative approach, the community approach, and another methods that we have. Okay, and then let's start with the last theory, that is the sixth theory, and this is the Ausubel theory. The Ausubel theory, their main theory is the how to build some meaningfulness activities to our students to have a meaningful learning. Okay, and here Ausubel take into account the two parts that we say. Then the number one is the interactions that we have with another ones. There is the believing or gaining interest in to learn something else. And then is the second one is the skillful instructions and the students. For example, how students can transform and connect the prior knowledge with the new knowledge to create a meaningful learning. Okay? And well, Ausubel theory Ausubel theory involves that we as a teacher, we need to create some material, some verb or text material that it could be meaningful for them, no? And for example, how this information we can to summarize to create advanced organizations, and in that way the students are gonna have or the learning, the knowledge is gonna be achieved in the long-term memory. Remember that we have short-term memory and long-term memory. The short memory is, for example, what we learned or memorized, but in a short period of time. And in a long-term memory is, for example, that we are very do a cognitive process, and in that way our learning is meaningful and it become a meaningful learning. Okay, and some methods that we can use, or there is similar, or how we can create meaningful activity. It could be clear, the lexical approach, the project-based in projects, and the Suggestipedia. Okay guys, I hope that you can understand this, and I think that in the future, and we as a teachers, we can understand the development process of our students. Okay, so I think that's all for today, and if you have doubts or if you want to learn something more, you can write it down here below in the comments and subscribe. See you.